Should doctors call off strikes amid the flu outbreak? Get your calls in for this one now. NHS leaders say hospitals are facing an unprecedented flu season. Admissions have hit a record high in England for this time of the year. We are being warned this could be one of the worst winters in decades. So with that being said, should resident doctors call off strikes? They're due to walk out from the 17th of December, and even the Academy of Medical Royal Colleges has waded in and tried to get the government and the doctors' unions to end their painful dispute. Narinder, what do you say to this?
I am all for them striking. I am on the side of doctors because I feel I value the NHS. I value the work they do. And I heard Wes Streeting the other day on the radio. If I'd closed my eyes, I would have thought I was listening to a Tory MP. The way he was talking down about doctors, it really upset me. The fact is, if you value the NHS, your child needs help at 3 o'clock in the morning and they're working on Friday night at 3 o'clock in the morning, saving lives. They deserve the pay they've asked for, because all I keep hearing is they've had a pay increase, but it's not the value they wanted or should have been given. So they're on something like £18 an hour. All they're asking for is £22 an hour, from my understanding. And then on top of it, there's not enough training places. Do we value our doctors? Do we want to retain our doctors? So if you're saying there's a flu epidemic, oh my goodness, they shouldn't be striking, then you need to value your doctors. What kind of country are we that doctors are having to strike to be heard? It makes me feel sad. Give them what they deserve.
So they're not asking for a pay rise, they're asking for pay restoration, Rick. That's it.
Well, they've had their pay restored. So they got 22% last year. I think the split here is twofold in the fact that they were given this rise last year, but they were not given any conditions that went with it. So the government went, there you go, there's 22%. A year later, the doctors have come back and said, right, give us 26%. I mean, I'd probably do the same thing if it was that easy. So Wes Streeting said he gave in, right, gave them the money last year.
He didn't give the full amount. It's not what they asked for.
They asked for 35 and he gave them 22. And they've come back again, but there are no conditions attached to this. This is what I'm so concerned about. We are giving inflationary pay rises to the public sector, but there are no conditions. There are no reform alongside this. And one area that's not actually talked about here is pensions when it comes to the private versus the public sector. These doctors get big pensions. I would love a pension the size of what they're getting. The average, the rough pension that they will get, these junior doctors, is around about 60 grand a year. My gosh, do you know how much you'd have to have in a private pension fund? Anyone who's listening or watching today who does not work in the public sector, you would have to have about 700 grand in a private pension fund to get that type of money.
They work really hard.
I'm sure they do, Narinder.
They're saving lives. I think you're not up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
No.
If your child was poorly and you needed help, your child, then suddenly you value a doctor.
Okay, but Narinder, it's not just about, I suppose, the pay rise. It's about the timing of these strikes. And if we're looking at the worst flu outbreak in decades, isn't it cruel to strike now?
No, I think it's cruel to expect them to come in the week before Christmas, that's their time too, and expect them to look after you without being paid enough. There's PAs who are getting paid more than a doctor. They've trained. This is an investment. This is taxpayers' money. We've invested in their training, but there's not enough jobs out there for them. There's not. There's like
well, that is another part of it, Rick, that it's not just about pay, it's actually about jobs as well. And they're arguing that the conditions of the NHS are already putting patients' life at risk, and therefore what they're doing now is securing a better future for everybody.
I think there's a bit of a myth here that all doctors are in this strike together. They're not. This is really the really junior doctors, so the stage 1 and stage 2.
It's resident doctors.
The people who are fresh out of medical school who are striking here. I've got a lot of friends who are doctors. They are appalled at what some of their colleagues are doing. And you know why? That is backed up by the numbers. Do you know why the NHS didn't fail Storm last time they went on a strike? It's because the turnout was really poor. A lot of them
Rick,
just weren't
your point
up for
doesn't
it.
make sense because they actually have voted to strike, and the
But they didn't turn
majority
out.
they voted to strike.
But they didn't,
and their consultants are supporting them,
but
and
Rick,
they are going to be.
Rick is right on this. The turnout for the strike this time round was significantly lower than the last, which suggests that the doctors themselves are not necessarily supporting the BMA in this.
I think that that could be many reasons. We don't know the reasons why they didn't. I think there's so much public backlash and there's so much misinformation being given. But I think ultimately you value your doctors. You have to value your NHS.
Let's go to the calls. Ronald from Angus, what do you think about the resident doctors going on strike?
I think you should go on strike, yes.
Even during
Very
this
much
flu season?
Well, the flu season, right? I live in Scotland. We have cold weather. We get the flu. People get the flu. But it shouldn't matter if they are striking for what they're striking. They're striking for what they believe in.
Of course.
And they should be backed for that. Not what they should be backed.
I suppose my point is, Ronald, if they're going to be making a point to the government, which is what they're trying to do, because they want better pay, they want more jobs for doctors and better conditions, couldn't they do that in summer rather than winter, when we're potentially facing the worst flu season in decades and people's lives are at risk?
But it wouldn't matter if they did it in the summertime or the wintertime. They're still sticking for the same thing.
Yeah, but more people may die if they do it in winter.
Yeah, but more people may live. You don't know. You don't know. You're going from assumptions.
Yeah, well, my assumption is based on stats and hospital admissions. They increase in winter because of the flu season, because people get terrible colds.
Did you tell me what the statistic is for people that have had the flu injections, that have taken ill, that are in hospital, and people that were not taking the injection and they've been okay?
Well, Ronald, that's a debate on vaccines, which is a different debate to what we're having here. But what are you trying to say in that actually people need to protect themselves, and if you don't want to get the flu, get the vaccine?
I think people have to make up their own mind what they want to do with vaccines.
Okay.
I can't speak for. I speak for myself.
Okay.
The doctors should be able to strike. Doctors should be able to strike if they're going for a meaningful strike. Yeah, go for it. But you're saying it's going to hurt people.
I'm saying potentially. It's my job to play devil's advocate with you, Angus, and if you're supporting the doctor strikes, I'm going to argue the other way. But Ronald, thank you very much. They're certainly going to make more of an impact in winter than had they done it in summer, which is presumably why they are doing it at this time of year. Ronald, thank you very much for your call. Alison from Coventry, what's your view?
I agree that they should strike for better pay, because they do a majority of the work. But I don't agree they should do it in the winter, where a majority of people are a lot more poorly, the elderly get ill, and we're not just talking about people that might be in with the flu. Recently, my brother-in-law, who has got cancer, slept very, very poorly, was blue lighted to their local hospital, and he sat in 3 different ambulances before he could even get into rapid resus.
Alison, I mean, that's terrible to hear. Unfortunately, we hear these stories again and again. This isn't unusual. And it's not necessarily during strike time either. These things happen even when the doctors aren't striking. Does it make you feel better that during the last strike, I think they covered 97% of their workload, even while striking, because consultants came in, they got agency staff, they made sure that people were still being cared for?
I understand that, but I do think they could just pick a better time to strike. And I think in mid-December, through this epidemic of the flu, I just don't think people are going to back them as much.
Well, this is the issue, isn't it? They might make a bigger impact, but will they lose the public support?
But I think, don't they have consultants covering for them? I know that. They don't just leave people A&E. They're not cruel.
Well, they're covering 97%, not 100.
Yeah, but they're still
3%
covering.
At risk.
They're being covered. But the fact is, Alison, we're in a situation, we're in a country where doctors are having to strike. You can't pick and choose, well, actually, when's best for everyone.
Understand. No. I'm not saying that they shouldn't strike. I believe they should.
But you just think summer may have been a better time?
Yeah, March, April, just a little bit of a better time than this epidemic that's going on at the moment.
Is there ever a point, Alison, when you think that they shouldn't be able to strike? So if you give someone 22% one year and you give someone 25% next year and they say, yeah, right, we'll give it, you have your 25%. Do you think next year, if they came back again and asked for another 25%, should they be allowed to strike then?
No, they can't keep striking for better pay. They should be happy with what they get within this strike if the government give it them.
All right, Alison, thank you very much for your call. Anne from Buckinghamshire, what's your view on this?
Well, I personally feel that the doctors should strike they're not being listened to, basically. I recently went to hospital, and because it was so busy, had to wait in the A&E because urgent care was so busy. However, I was told on that evening, which was a Friday evening, there were 3 doctors to deal with A&E, urgent care, and the wards. So, doctors really should be appreciated more, in my opinion.
And though, I suppose the counter-argument to that is, how will increasing pay help that situation? The problem there, Anne, was there wasn't enough doctors.
No, I see what you mean. I fully agree with you there. However, they're having to do more work than is really capable for one person. So maybe the number of doctors need to be increased.
Well, that is part of it, increasing the number of jobs, because I think at the moment 30,000 doctors are applying for 10,000 places, or is it 50,000?
That's right,
it has
30,000 for 10.
The number of doctors over the last 5 years, and there's been a big boost since Labour came in as well, the number of doctors has increased, but what's not increased is their productivity. We've got 9.9 million more sick days.
How do you want a surgeon to work any faster?
Well, the simple thing is, more of them are taking sick days, people are being less productive. You know why? Because there's a big myth in the NHS that managers are a bad thing. Actually, there are fewer managers in the NHS than there are in the private sector. So you've got doctors running around doing paperwork, when actually we should be employing more managers to do it, which nobody ever talks about, by the way.
All right, well, no, they do, but they talk about it in the other way.
The other way around, because we've got rid of them all.
All right, Anne, thank you very much for your call. Irene from West Yorkshire, I believe you're a former nurse. You were a nurse for 43 years?
Yes. I started nursing in 1961, and I did 43 years.
And what's your view on these strikes?
I think it's disgusting. I would never have gone on strike for anything. You go into that kind of profession to care for people, to make sure people don't suffer. And when I believe that the NHS is they have a brilliant pension, they have decent holidays, they have breaks, they can work overtime as much as they want, and they do earn more than that. It isn't the money. You don't go in for money. You go in to make sure people live.
Money does matter, because we're in a cost of living crisis, and there's doctors having to move out of London, because they can't afford their rents, and we need to value those doctors. So I appreciate you've done 43 years, and thank you for your contribution to the NHS. However, back then, you could afford a mortgage and a rent and your food bills. It's very, very difficult for doctors. They're earning less than an Uber driver. They're earning £18 an hour. That's outrageous for saving lives.
Only the most junior doctors.
Well, we're talking about doctors that could be in the first 6 years of their residency, their careers. So if you've been working for 6 years, you're no longer that junior, are you?
And in debt as well.
Irene, I suppose an argument would be it's not just about pay, it's about conditions. The NHS is crumbling around them, and they're trying to make it better for everyone.
That is why, because doctors and people that are going on strike, that's why it's failing, and it will fail, because they're not going in for the thing is, they do get decent pay rise. I mean, 20,000 they don't just take that home. They get loads of overtime, which they want, because I'm sorry, I really am sorry, but to me, lives are far more important than they get high pay as they get on. They get a brilliant pension. They get holidays. They do get respect. And I tell you what, the respect for the doctors is far more important than any money in the world. The respect for the nurses and the love for the nurses. People are just getting angry. I'm not angry. I'm angry at the thought that they're just pulling themselves down. They're bringing themselves down to a level which is so wrong. It is so wrong.
Irene, it's really interesting to hear from you. 43 years working as a nurse, not an opinion to be ignored. Thank you very much for your call. Peter from Durham, what's your view on this one?
The doctors should get the rise they're asking for. They work damn hard. They do a career. And what the whole service wants to do is stop all these big managers and get rid of the managers and go back to what it was when you had the matrons running the wards.
Oh, well, Peter, Rick would disagree with you there.
Peter, I think that is, forgive me, I think that's an opinion that was probably valid about 10, 20 years ago when the NHS was flooded with managers. What the Conservatives did was actually get rid of a load of managers, and this has continued. And now the private sector, if you go for a private operation, there are loads of managers that will start your paperwork, they'll check you in, they'll make notes of what you've done and what you need to have done. In the NHS, so many more of the doctors are actually doing that now. Rishi Sunak wrote about this in the Times last weekend. The doctors are doing too much of the paperwork, so they can't be treating the patients.
But Peter, managers aside, Irene, we just heard from, was a nurse for over 40 years. She thinks this is a vocation. They're actually bringing down the vocation of caring for people by going out and strike, particularly at a time when we could be facing the biggest flu outbreak in decades.
Well, the thing is, if things would run properly, remember in 2010 that they've lost wages since 2010. The Conservatives have messed everything up.
Okay.
And the health service has lost so much money, and a lot of money's wasted in places where it shouldn't be spent.
Okay, Peter, I hear what you're saying. So maybe just give them the restoration from 2010 and be done with it.
Yeah.
Okay, Peter.
Well, that'd be another 11% to take you up to the 35 that they asked for last year. So not another 26%.
Rick, they're not being greedy. They're just asking for a full pay restoration.
All right, we're going to have to leave that there, Peter. Thank you very much.